Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is really taking the gaming world by storm. Nearly a month after its official release, Clair Obscur has sold more than 2 million copies, holds one of the highest Metacritic user scores ever, and seems to be well on its way to not only winning Game of the Year, but more than likely dominating the 2025 Gaming Awards. But why? Sure, you could say it's the combat, or the visuals, or the story, and yeah, all of those things would be true. But there seems to be a bit of an X factor here that can't be overlooked, and is one of the reasons why I think Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is going to leave a lasting legacy that I think could end up impacting the gaming industry for a long time to come. At least, I hope so. Now on paper, it's interesting, because I don't think this is the type of game that a lot of players would typically gravitate towards. I mean, we're talking about a turn-based JRPG, and in the world of Souls-likes, roguelikes, MMOs, Metroidvania, open worlds, and pretty much everything in between, it's not exactly like turn-based games are the most popular these days. And because of that, I feel like this game kind of flew under the radar for a lot of players. Even once the copious amounts of glowing reviews and high praise started coming out, if a turn-based game wasn't your thing, you probably were still a little hesitant. But the hype train eventually just got too big for even the most skeptical gamers, and within a couple of days, this game really began to take on a life of its own. But again, I ask the question, why? What is it about this game at this time that really seems to have struck a chord? And after wrestling with that thought for a little while, I came to a very simple conclusion. This game seems to have something that other games just don't. It has heart. It makes you feel something. It makes you forget that you're playing a game, and it puts you into the game. And you want to unravel the mystery of why this is happening year after year. And even days after finishing the main story, I'm still conflicted on how to exactly feel about this game. And yeah, those elements are built into the story for sure, but more than anything, if you dig a little bit deeper, I think it has more to do with the team behind the game, Sandfall Interactive. Now, since the overwhelming success of the launch, much more has come out about the team behind the game, Sandfall Interactive. It's a relatively small team with a lot of experience in the gaming industry and headed by industry vets that have worked for much bigger companies, specifically Ubisoft. In a recent interview, Sandfall's CEO and creative director, Guillaume Broche, explained why he left Ubisoft to create his own studio. And for me, this perfectly sums up some of the main things that are wrong with the gaming industry and why Clair Obscur is such a breath of fresh air. He explained that he avoided pitching this idea to Ubisoft because getting the chance to pitch an idea like this to the higher ups is slim to none. He also confirmed that pouring resources and money into a new IP is considered a risky move, so having something like this would have likely been shot down unless it came from a very established developer within the company. He also noted that developing a game like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 at Ubisoft would have taken decades. Now, let me tell you why this resonates with me personally. In my day-to-day, when I'm not playing games or making videos on YouTube, I work in the tech industry, another industry that's been absolutely decimated by large-scale layoffs. And when I first started my career, I really wanted to work for a very big tech company. I mean, this was back in the day when Google just seemed like the coolest place in the world to work, and Facebook was up and coming. And these really just seemed like places where you could work hard, but you could also just be really creative and work on some really cool stuff. So shortly after I graduated from university, I got the chance and I started working at a big tech company. And let me tell you, I hated everything about it. You just couldn't really get anything done, and there was so much micromanagement and politicking behind the scenes, and for the short time that I was there, it made my life pretty miserable. So I quit that company, and I've worked for relatively small tech companies ever since. Because at a small company, you just have a lot more autonomy, and you can be creative, and honestly, it's just a lot easier to get stuff done. So I can really personally relate to what Guillaume was saying in that interview, and for me, this really perfectly sums up a lot of what's wrong with the gaming industry. New IP is seen as risky. It's a lot easier to just put out a sequel or a remake or a remaster because people are already familiar with that brand and passionate fans are more than likely to pay attention. In fact, of the top 10 AAA games released in the past 5 years, the only 2 that are original games and not based on an existing IP are Elden Ring and Cyberpunk 2077. And those were hardly put out by small indie studios. Both FromSoft and CD Projekt Red are pretty well-established brands that had already had a lot of success prior to these releases. Now to add to that, over the past handful of years, we've seen development times for these AAA games really explode, with the average length of time to develop a new title somewhere between 5 to 7 years. I mean, think of that from a business perspective. You're going to spend the next 5 to 7 years working on a project that you have no idea whether or not it's going to be successful. And during that time, you're not really working on or putting out anything new, especially if you're a smaller studio. So you're basically losing money every single day for 5 to 7 years. And when that launch day finally comes, not only do you have to recover all the money that you've spent or borrowed from investors during that development time, but you also have to make enough money to hopefully fund your next project. I mean, that is an insane amount of pressure. And that's why we've seen these large-scale layoffs from these larger studios when these games aren't successful. Or we get projects like Titanfall 3 that get canceled halfway through their development because these companies get to a point where they just know there's no way they're going to be able to recoup their costs. The development time just takes too long and it gets too expensive. So the solution for these studios is to take less risks. And every once in a while, yeah, maybe you do get lucky and you can occasionally take a little bit higher of a risk, but that's definitely the exception and not the rule. That also explains why games just keep getting more and more expensive. I mean, rumors are that GTA 6 could be the first $100 game ever, which is insane. But considering it's been more than 12 years since the release of GTA 5, that's a lot of costs that need to be recovered. And these are the reasons why larger studios like Ubisoft seem to be stuck just doing the same thing over and over. Now, I really don't want to pick on Ubisoft here, there's enough channels out there that do that, but the fact that Sandfall Interactive essentially spun out of Ubisoft really couldn't be more perfect, because I see Clair Obscur basically the exact opposite of AC Shadows. Now, back when AC Shadows first came out, I made a post on my community tab explaining why I decided not to cover the game, and essentially it came down to the fact that, to me, the game just didn't really seem to have a whole lot of personality to it. I mean, the game itself is fine, you know, it looked great, it functioned well, I didn't have any bugs or experience anything like that, but it just lacked any sort of depth, and I never really cared or connected with any of the characters of the story. Now, to me, this is reminiscent of another game that I did end up covering on my channel a few months back, Eternal Strands. This is a game that was put out by another smaller indie developer, Yellow Brick Games. This was also that studio's first main title, and while the game was by no means the same level of success as Clair Obscur, I'd say in general it was pretty well regarded. It's currently sitting at a very positive rating on Steam, and at the end of the day, they tried to do something pretty fun and unique, and for me, I think that it mostly paid off. But once again, we see another studio where the 4 co-founders of Yellow Brick Games are all former Ubisoft. So it's not like Ubisoft doesn't have the ability to attract talent, they certainly have very talented people working over there, which we've seen from some of these other projects that have spun out essentially from Ubisoft. It's that these large development studios aren't built to take risks. There's no financial incentive for them to do it. So if the gaming industry really is going to change, it needs to do so from these smaller indie studios that can afford to take these risks. And honestly, it's up to consumers like us to reward these studios when they do take these risks. Now, all of this being said, my fear here is that the industry is going to look at the success of Clair Obscur and they're going to ultimately take away the wrong lessons. I mean, this is something that we have seen time and time again. They may see the success of the game and interpret it as we need more JRPGs or more turn-based games. Or even maybe just more Clair Obscur, which we certainly do want, but we want it done in the right way. Even my favorite game series of all time, Horizon, is suffering from this. They see the success of Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, and they think the solution is just more spin-offs, more MMOs, more multiplayers, more merchandising. You know, turn it into a movie, turn it into a TV show. The response has been more Horizon, not necessarily more quality Horizon. I think I've already heard or seen somewhere that there's talks of creating a Clair Obscur TV show or movie. And yeah, it might ultimately end up being good, but in my opinion, that's just the wrong thing to take away from the success of the game. And it proves maybe that the industry isn't understanding that the real key to the game's success is passion. It's stepping out there, it's taking risks, doing something bold, and a studio and developers that decided to do something big and put themselves out there. So what does all this mean? Is Clair Obscur Expedition 33 really gonna change the gaming industry? Man, I don't know, I hope so. You know, I doubt it'll really change anything with the big development studios like Bethesda or Ubisoft or EA Games, but if nothing else, maybe it'll inspire another smaller studio out there to dream big and go out there and do something really bold. And speaking of taking a risk, I took a risk when I predicted that we could be getting a Horizon 3 announcement sometime in the very near future, and I broke that all down in a video that should be appearing right about here. So be sure to check that one out. As always, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, right. Enjoy myself.